Thank you for everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Dr. Kalli Prater. I'm a chiropractic physician. I specialize in functional medicine, and I'm a nutrition educator for Fruitful Yield. So I actually help come around to the 13 locations and educate the staff on nutrition and supplements so that when you guys come in and have questions, they can better help you figure some stuff out, okay? So tonight we are talking about leaky gut and Candida. And again, if you have questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. It's easier for us to go through the material while we're going through it and have questions while we're going through it than to answer them all at the end, okay? There's a quick disclaimer. I am a physician, but I am not everybody's personal physician, so this is for informational purposes only, okay? We're not here to diagnose and treat anybody's anything. We're just here to give good information to everybody, okay? You are allowed to take pictures of the slides as well. I have no problem with that, okay? So tonight we are going to discuss Candida, what it is, the symptoms of having Candida issues, and what you can start doing about it if you think you have a Candida problem. We're going to discuss leaky gut, how this can affect multiple things in our system, the causes and contributing factors, and then again, ways to provide support for a leaky gut as well, okay? As a functional medicine practitioner, gut health is super, super, super important in terms of overall total health of the human body. So no matter what anybody comes into my office for, we always start with gut health. If the gut isn't okay, nothing else in the body is going to be okay. So I have people come in for a wide variety of symptoms and issues, and I'm always looking at gut health first because there's typically roots diving back to gut health leading to other things, right? So gut health, I think, is a severely under-addressed concern in our country, especially with Candida and the leakiness. It's becoming more and more common. So we're going to dive into that stuff today. So Candida, what is Candida? It is a yeast-like parasite fungus. It is part of our natural gut flora, so we all have it. Congratulations. It is only problematic when it is overgrown and taking over the gut bacteria, right? When it's in balance with our good gut bacteria, it actually provides us some benefit and some function. When it is overgrown and crowding out the digestive tract and taking over the space for good bacteria, that is when it is problematic, okay? So we all have it. When it's overgrown, it's a problem, and that's about it. We're never gonna get completely rid of it. It is a living thing. Okay, a lot of people think or forget that it is living. So if you don't rebalance it, it can become adaptive in the system and become resistant to some of the natural things as well. So symptoms of having Candida issues, and these are widespread, and you don't have to have all of them. You can have a whole random slew of them, which is why, again, I think this is a hard to figure out issue for a lot of people. Probably the most common thing I see in people is recurring sinus issues. Recurring sinus infection and recurring congestion are huge links to having Candida issues. So the Candida lives in our digestive tract, but your digestive tract starts in your mouth, and that lining also goes up through your inner nose, right? Once it's overgrown in the digestive tract, it can travel to any of that mucous membrane in the digestive tract, including the inner nose. And it's dark and it's warm and it's moist up there, and your body's not typically bugging this area too much. So lots of people with chronic congestion are having really Candida issues. Mayo Clinic did a study that showed 97% of all sinus infections are fungal related, right? That's not even the chronic ones, but 97% are fungal related. You go in for antibiotics kill off the good bacteria. You are now promoting an overgrowth in a further way. So very common for lots of people. When I see with recurring sinus stuff, there's typically links to some fungal stuff going on in the system. Allergies, people who have new allergies that have popped up, right? And you're in your 30s and 40s and you've lived your life without allergies, and all of a sudden you're starting to have seasonal allergies, more food allergies to things. That's a sign. Worsening allergies. I see a lot of people, they're like, I used to be intolerant to these foods. Now it's a list of 20, 30, 40 foods. Right? Anytime your immune system seems to be changing drastically can be a sign that there's some chronic fungal things in there. Changes in appetite, especially cravings for sugar, right? Sugar is a fuel source for Candida and mold. Sugar cravings come in different ways for different people. I have some people who have overt sugar cravings. They can't get enough sugar. I have other people who are like, I don't even eat sugar, but they eat tons of carbs, right? Lots of bread, lots of pasta, lots of crackers. All those things turn into sugar, so it's still a method of delivery for sugar. Everybody's body is very different in terms of how they crave sugar. So if you're a carb craver or a sugar craver and it's all of a sudden, or it's getting drastically worse, sometimes fungal things can be driving that boat for you. Gas, bloating, and digestive upset. Again, this is an overgrowth in the digestive tract, so you can have digestive tract symptoms. Brain fog is a big one. If you have an overgrowth of Candida, they start robbing you of certain nutrients, right? Anything that messes with the gut barrier can also mess with the brain barrier as well and cause some inflammation. So a lot of people have a little bit of fogginess, a little forgetfulness, and again, everybody is different. Changes in bowel movements, and this can go either way. You can start having really loose bowel movements. You can stop having bowel movements regularly, right? There's no rhyme or reason, which is again why it's hard to figure out that this is what's going on for a lot of people. Fatigue is a huge, huge, huge symptom. Again, this is robbing nutrients from your body. It's also causing some chronic inflammation for you, which can be tiring depending on how long this has been going on and how bad the overgrowth is. Hair loss and skin issues. I have had multiple people who are losing lots of hair, right? And you got to check the normal things. Are you getting nutrients in? Your thyroid health okay? But a lot of times the fungal stuff can cause imbalances enough that hair starts to fall out. Skin is the fastest way out of your digestive tract. So the skin on your body is the same skin and the same cell type that goes into the digestive tract. So the skin is the fastest way out, and sometimes people's bodies purge the Candida out through their skin. So I've had people with skin rashes, and it doesn't really matter where it comes out at. I've had people with just their face rash. I've had people with what I would expect is a typical fungal area where like it's creases, it's dark, and it's moist, right? Like so creases behind the thigh, in the armpit, those would be more common areas, but I have had people just random skin stuff pop up. That's really their gut purging stuff out of their skin. Nail fungus is a big one. Nail fungus that's not going away. Fungal things feed fungal things. It's a sign that your body is not taking care of it. And a lot of times the traditional fungal treatments, they don't get to the root of the problem because it's really a gut-based issue. Thrush is the oral overgrowth that's really common in babies, but if you're an adult and you stick out your tongue in the mirror, right, and you look and there's a white coating on your tongue, that's not supposed to be there, right? I've had people where I'm like, cool, you could scrape that off and put that in a dish. Huge, right? And like people will come into my office, they're like, my teeth feel fuzzy, right? That shouldn't be a thing that happens. You shouldn't wake up with a fuzzy mouth. You shouldn't have a fuzzy mouth throughout the day. But those are big signs that there's some overgrowth. And not everybody experiences that. Vaginal yeast infections, recurring vaginal yeast infections in women, because it's a fungal thing, typically linked to the gut Candida overgrowth. And I will tell you, this is the least common symptom that I typically see in women, right? I've had plenty of women who have Candida overgrowth that have never had a vaginal yeast infection in their life. This is not a requirement for having Candida overgrowth. And a lot of women are like, but I've never had a yeast infection. It's not your weakest link in your body. So symptoms are based on where your body is breaking down the most and the weakest, right? So plenty of people have a great environment down there. They're not going to have symptoms there. I have had women tell me if they eat sugar, within 10 minutes they have vaginal itching though, right? That's not a normal situation. There's some obvious overgrowth and you're obviously feeding something going on there. Urinary issues or things that are not responding to antibiotic therapy. A lot of people have recurring urinary issues, urinary tract infections, that kind of stuff, and they do multiple rounds of antibiotics. If it's not responding to antibiotics, it's probably not bacterial in nature, right? So the flora in the vagina and the urinary tract system is directly linked to our gut health, so it can be fungal related. I've also had people with chronic ear infections that aren't going away. I say, go back to your doctor and ask them if it's fungal. And sure enough, they go to an antifungal therapy and things are all cleared up, right? But that's after 3 or 4 rounds of antibiotics. And now the gut is even more destroyed and overgrown, right? So they didn't get to it fast enough. It's going to cause more problems. There is an at-home spit test. that you can do to see whether or not this is part of the problem for what's going on with your gut health. So you go to bed at night with a glass of water by your bedside. You wake up first thing in the morning. You don't drink the water, you spit in the water. Okay, you wait about 10 minutes. There should be no change in what happened from when you initially spit in the water and 10 minutes later. Any changes are signs that there can be some Candida stuff going on. So it should not grow strings and look like a spider web is all of a sudden in your glass, because I've had people bring me photos and videos, because it should not be bubbling and frothing either, right? It shouldn't sink like a rock and be like bobbing up and down in the water. Any weird changes are signs that there could be Candida stuff. You do, so you go to bed at night with the glass of water by your bedstand. You wake up first thing in the morning, so it's had time to kind of overgrow and get into your mouth. People who have fuzzy teeth, this is almost always like, I don't know that you need to go this far to do the spit test, but you spit in the glass, wait 10 minutes. It should not do anything. Right. So any changes.
And the water half full, is it a full glass of water?
Just a small glass of water. So the question was regular tap water, right? I have to repeat my questions. Yes, regular tap water. Somebody asked in one of the previous lectures that I've done, would pH water throw the results off? And I would say probably yes, right? Growing things don't typically do well in an alkaline environment. They need an acidic environment. So if you're spitting into alkaline water, you're possibly throwing off the results, which nobody had asked before, and I think that's a really great question. So regular, standard tap water would be the best to spit in. Yes?
The question is there a good time of day to actually do this? A particular time of day that is best?
So the question was, is there a good time of day to do this? Yes, first thing in the morning.
That's it.
Yep. Because then you haven't messed with your mouth, you haven't eaten anything, you haven't drank anything, you're not flushing anything out. You've given it time to kind of proliferate, if you will, into that area to be more likely to be positive. Yeah. Very good questions. So ways that you can start addressing this. If you guys have ever looked into Candida, there are 1 million Candida diets. Okay? The diets are very strict, or very, like there's a lot of them out there. This is just one example of how to follow a Candida diet. And if you guys read the top 8 to 12 weeks for diet change alone to start addressing this and rebalancing this. So the diets are typically very, very restrictive, and not everybody can do the diet. This one is lots of animal protein, lots of green leafy vegetables, little to no fruits or carbs. Right? So nothing starchy. Anything that turns into sugar feeds Candida, so that's out. Berries in small quantities would be allowed, but this is very hard for people to follow for 8 to 12 weeks, right? This is very restrictive. It's very limiting. You have to take your food everywhere with you. So a lot of people can't follow this to the T. And the whole point is you're trying to starve off the overgrowth, right? You're trying to cut down the food supply. Your body will naturally rebalance. Not everybody can follow this stuff. Vegans especially are going to have an exceptionally hard time, because also their protein sources typically have some starchy stuff in there, right? Like beans and lentils are on the don't eat list because they're going to turn into some sugars. So the way you marry these two together, you got to do as much as you can with the diet, right? And then there are supplementation things to help rebalance. If you do both of those, it shouldn't take you 8 to 12 weeks. It's typically a much faster process because the rebalancing supplements and you're starving it off. If people are doing only supplements and not changing a thing in their diet and they're still eating a pound of sugar a day, it's going to take 8 to 12 weeks for that to happen too, right? So I always have people do the best that they can with the diet, do the best that they can with the supplements, and typically it happens a lot sooner and a lot faster, right? Because you can't feed it and expect it to go away with just supplements alone. Supplements to support the balance. So we have Candida-specific enzymes. The enzymes actually break down the cell wall itself of the Candida, so Candida cannot continue to live, right? It's a physical breakdown of the Candida itself. The enzymes also break down what is called the biofilm that the Candida creates. Candida creates a biofilm, or It looks like a shield that looks just like your body so that your body can no longer recognize that this is a pathogen and that this is problematic, right? Candida depends on the host to live and survive. So it creates a biofilm with other things like parasites and other bacteria and other viruses to hide itself from you to stay alive, right? So if you're not doing anything to break down the biofilm in your system, you might not be getting everything. So the biofilm breakdown is a huge reason why people still have recurring issues. Oil of oregano, very popular, very potent plant oil. Yes, sir?
You're saying that the enzymes break down the film and that's why it recurs? Or the other way around?
So the question was the enzymes break down the biofilm and that's why it's reoccurring. No, the problem with most people is they're not doing anything to break down the biofilm. So there's still an overgrowth. They kill off maybe a little bit and rebalance a little bit and you're okay for a little while, but then all your symptoms come right back after you stop your supplements. You didn't get rid of it all because typically you've got to do something to break down those biofilms. Breaking down the biofilm exposes the pathogens to your immune system so that your body can tell that there's a problem and it can start rebalancing and helping you as well. So oil of oregano, powerful plant oil that again breaks down biofilms. This will expose viruses, molds, parasites, bacteria to your immune system so that it can take care of it naturally, right? So a lot of people use oil of oregano. Part of the problem with if you didn't get all of the overgrowth, right? And this is the only therapy you've done, because I've met plenty of people coming into the stores. They're like, I'm on my like 4th or 5th round of trying to get rid of this candida. All I'm doing is oil of oregano. It's alive, so at this point it's probably resistant to the oil of oregano, right? It's smart, it wants to live, it will develop defenses. So sometimes you also have to switch and rotate what you're doing because it's alive and it's tricky and it's smart and it wants to live, right? So we gotta be on the offense. Homeopathy is one of my favorite things to do. This is a natural rebalancing support. It can address multiple symptoms in one formula. It is a liquid, so it is very easy to take. It's in a water base, so it is very kid-friendly, and the bottle has kid dosages on it as well because this problem happens in kids too, right? This isn't just an adult problem. This is an any age problem. I've had women use the homeopathy because it's a liquid as toner on their skin. If they're having skin issues that I think are the fungal related, you can use it as a topical as well, directly on the areas. So I'm a big fan of this. Homeopathy is turning on your body's natural system that says, hey, we have candida, it's a problem, we need to start rebalancing it, right? You're turning on your natural immunity. So this gets past a lot of the biofilm stuff as well. Yes?
Is that safe enough to put like on your eyelid? Because I have eczema from this that pops up periodically on my face and in my sensitive areas like that.
Right. So the question was, is it safe enough to put on an eyelid? I would say if you're putting it on a cotton ball and did a swipe, yes. Homeopathy is considered over-the-counter medicine, but it has no interaction and no side effect. So some of the safest stuff you can take.
What is homeopathy?
So the question was, what is homeopathy? Homeopathy is a very small microdose of a substance that would have caused the symptoms. So it's kind of introducing it to your system, and then your system goes, oh, I know what that is, and starts taking care of it. So you're getting a microdose that won't cause the symptoms or won't cause an overgrowth, but it's signaling to your body that there is a problem.
So it's kind of like a bacteria you put in your mouth?
There are a lot of them. So the question was like, what kind of form does it come in? We have liquids, we have sprays, we have pellets that dissolve in the mouth. They're all oral absorption because it's sending a signal to your brain pretty fast and pretty easy. Yeah. I'm a big fan because this is easy to take with homeopathy as well. So if you're trying to rebalance your system, you can have what is called die-off side effects, right? You can feel run down, flu-like, achy, headachy because your body is rebalancing and you're exposing pathogens to your immune system, and now it's got to work a little bit harder. You typically have far less if you're doing homeopathy. Most people don't feel achy and garbagey when they're doing the homeopathy to rebalance. They just start feeling better, which I'm a big fan of. Just feeling better.
Do you get this here? Homeopathy?
Yeah, the question was, do you get this here? All of the products I'm discussing tonight are found in this store.
It's called homeopathy.
It is called High Potency 9 Candida. It's in this little blue box. We only have one Candida homeopathy in the store. So you got one option. Yes, dear.
My question is, do you just do one, or you do other things with that together?
So the question was, do you do one thing or do you all do all things together? And I'm going to tell you, there's no really good answer to that. And a lot of people need to do multiple things. It depends on how long things have been going on, how bad it's been going on. If it's a really new issue, typically you only have to do one or two things, right? I'm always a fan of pairing something that's going to break down the biofilm with something that's going to try and rebalance the system, right? Those two things together. So enzymes, oil of oregano, break down biofilm. Homeopathy is going to help rebalance. So I like to give multiple options for each thing because, again, maybe somebody can't take oil of oregano because they're allergic to oregano, so they need something else. Or they've done only oil of oregano in the past, and now they need a different option. So sometimes, depending on, if you do stuff and your symptoms go away and then they come back once you stop, I would rotate so you're not doing the same thing all the time because you will create possibly resistance in that fungal stuff. Very good question. Tea tree oil. This is a traditional herb used to support fungal balancing. This is typically used topically for skin issues, nails especially. We do have Candida blend supplements that have multiple ingredients in them. One of them does have the tea tree oil already in it, in the capsule. We would never be able to tell you to drink tea tree oil. We would never recommend that, right? So this is typically topical use, or if it's in a blend for Candida specifically, it's already in a safe to take form. But a lot of people use tea tree oil.
But the oregano oil is oral? Can you take it that way? How?
The question was, the oil of oregano is oral. So you can use the oil of oregano topically and orally. The oral supplements that we have come in a liquid and they come in a soft gel. The liquid is in an olive oil base, as well as the soft gels are in an olive oil base, so it is safe to take internally, right in your mouth. If you've never done the oil of oregano drops, they are hot and spicy the first time you do them. Typically vary, and you can almost feel like a burning sensation in your mouth. When you do it again, because I think there's almost an immediate rebalance going on in the mouth, you typically don't have that continued burning when you do it down the road. A caveat, because some people like to put oils in their water. I tried oil of oregano in my water bottle once. Poor mistake, ladies. No, don't do it. It makes the entire bottle of water hot and spicy. It was horrible. And I thought, I'll be diluting it. No, that was not the case. Everything was super fiery hot, and I was like, cool, I'll just do it in my mouth and drink my water and be done with it, right? You don't have to let it sit in your mouth for X amount of time. Drops in your mouth. It goes right into absorption that way. So I prefer just drop straight in the mouth. If people hate the taste, you can just do the soft gel. For small kids, because I promise you they're not going to do drops in the mouth, and or they're never going to trust you ever again. But drops on the bottom of the feet, right? Or the shins. It will absorb systemically and go through their system. So as an adult, you could do that as well. But kids, it's really easy to just do a couple drops on the bottom of the feet, call it a good day. Colloidal silver. So this, again, attacks biofilm and helps your immune system recognize bacteria, parasites, virus, and fungal issues. Colloidal silver, especially the brands listed on your sheet, these are a nanoparticle, right? The nanoparticle does not stay in your system. You are not absorbing heavy metal. So within the first 24 hours, 98% of the silver is out of your system. The other 2% is gone within the next 24 hours. So you're not taking on any heavy metal stuff. If anybody knows of silver back in the day, people took it and turned blue, possibly, right? This is not going to happen with the nanoparticle. It's going to help engulf pathogens and get them out of your system, okay? This is almost similar to oil of oregano in action, but if people can't take oregano for whatever reason, this is a good alternative. You can also use it in a neti pot if you think you have stuff going on in the sinuses as a topical application. You can gargle with it. There's lots of ways to use the silver in different ways. So I'm a big fan of this. Garlic, very, very, very helpful. Supports immune function. It supports the fungal balance. You can either eat garlic or take it as a supplement. The thing about eating the garlic for Candida balancing, it has to be raw. right? So I know tons of people who cook with tons of garlic. Once you're cooking it, you're killing off the enzymes and all the good actives. Even when you're eating it raw, you have to chop it, chew it, or crush it to activate the compounds in the garlic to make it effective, right? And I have some tough cookie friends who just pop a clove or two in their mouth, chomp, chop, down the hatch. I have a friend that juices it right down her throat. I am not that girl. I am not that tough, right? So that's not for everybody.
Can you eat with honey? A little honey?
The question was, can you eat it with honey? Interesting combination. I would say if you're going to eat it with honey, Manuka honey has good benefits for being balancing for this as well. So, you know, medicinal honey with some garlic. If that jives for you, kudos, why not? I haven't had, but I also have a mom who gives her kids cod liver oil with garlic and cayenne in a spoonful, right? And they've known it from their childhood, so they don't question it, right? Because if you start them young on weird stuff, they don't think anything of it. They're just, that's what they get when they're not feeling well. That wouldn't fly for me, right? So everybody's different. If you're brave enough to do it, go for it. Caprylic acid. This is a medium chain triglyceride oil found typically in coconut oil. It is concentrated in some supplements, just where it's caprylic acid. It's also in the blends for Candida. This helps the body fight bacterial and fungal issues, right? So it's one of those traditional herbs used for fungal balancing. You can eat coconut oil. This is the most prominent medium chain triglyceride in coconut oil or MCT oil, right? Yeah.
If you're having MCT oil, you're getting the caprylic acid.
The question was, if you're taking MCT oil, you're getting caprylic acid. Yes, you are. If you look on the back of most of the MCT oils, they should break down. There's 3 major ones that are going to be found in there. The caprylic acid is typically the most prominent. It's for immune function and health. A lot of people are taking MCT oil for fat burning purposes. You're getting less of the fat burning oils because the prominent oil is caprylic. So as long as you're not doing an oil where it's been filtered out, this should be the most prominent one you're getting. Probiotics. There are some more specific probiotics for trying to rebalance this issue. One is Saccharomyces boulardii. So this isn't even a true probiotic. It is a non-pathogenic yeast. There's a good time and place to use this guy. It starves off the Candida food supply because you're introducing a yeast that is competing with the Candida for food, right? So a lot of people take Saccharomyces boulardii when they have to go on an antibiotic as a preventative for the overgrowth. You can also do it while you're trying to rebalance to continue to starve off the food supply as well. It's non-pathogenic, so it's not going to make the yeast overgrow worse. It's also going to sit in the space where the yeast was so that when you take other probiotics down the road, they can get in there and live where the Candida was, right? So very beneficial, but it has its time and place. And this is it. This is the major one. And a lot of people know that this is one you can take with antibiotics. Antibiotics will not kill this off because it's a yeast. It's not a good bacteria, right? But it's going to help rebalance the system much faster. One of the other probiotics that's much better at rebalancing is Thrive. So this helps rebalance gut flora based on the individual. So this is a very unique probiotic that we have. It is a spore-based probiotic. The spores actually activate in your digestive tract and start scanning your digestive tract. And for each person in here, it would start working for you as an individual, right? So it's making compounds to rebalance your gut for you as an individual. So it's going to do something a little bit different based on everybody in here and what's going on, which is really cool. Very smart stuff. It's also undergoing clinical research to show that it actually can help kind of repair the environment and make it inhabitable for other good bacteria to live down the road. So I'm a huge fan of that because these are going to be a little bit more specific. And I will tell you, any probiotic that says women's on it, right? Because as a woman, we're marketed to. This is for vaginal and urinary tract balancing because it typically is a yeast balancing probiotic blend, right? So there's nothing extra womany about it. Men can take it too if they have a yeast problem because most strains are there to balance yeast, right? So also, if that's not part of your problem, you do not have to take a women's probiotic. And I meet a lot of women who are coming in, taking a women's probiotic, and I'm like, is that doing what you want it to do? And they're like, not really. Cool, let's switch to one that's not going to just be yeast balancing, right? Because there's a lot of good probiotics that we have. Some are more geared toward this than others. For the seriously immune compromised individuals, and I meet a lot of people who are very sick with a lot of different complaints, and if you start rebalancing your gut or detoxifying from something that's overgrowing, you can feel way worse, right? So for people who are already feeling run down and sick and exhausted and their body can't handle much more, detoxification is not the right time to do that, right? You don't want to do detoxification at the height of when you're not feeling good. I typically encourage people to do some kind of immune supportive supplements. I like AHCC. This is a patented, clinically studied mushroom extract. It is a deep, deep, deep immune support. It also is an immune system modulator. So if you have an overactive immune system, it helps tone it down. If you have an underactive immune system, it helps build it back up. It is not an immune stimulant. So it's very safe with people with autoimmune issues and allergy issues where it's an overreactive immune system. It's a balancing immune support. There is clinical research on this. It's patented and clinically studied. So no matter what company you're getting it from, it is the exact same ingredients. And if you Google AHCC, the foundation pops up and you can look at the clinical research. A lot of the clinical research is on seriously immune compromised individuals, like people with cancer. It's been studied in conjunction with cancer treatments, right? So like very deeply immune supportive, but really only necessary if somebody's really like some sick time. I encourage boost your immune system up so that if you're going to go try and rebalance things, your body can actually handle it and manage it, right? Because if you feel run down and garbagey, the last thing you want to go do is make yourself feel worse. Yeah.
What exactly is the criteria for the immune compromise? So like for somebody who has a gluten allergy, who has hypothyroidism, who has all of these other symptoms, would that be something that would qualify, or are you talking about only the extreme, like a cancer or?
So the question was, what's the classification for when you would use the AHCC? So I have people give me an estimation. If you were at 100% health at your best, if you could picture that day, where are you today? If you're at 50% or lower, I would recommend the AHCC or something immune supportive. If you're at 70, 80, 90% most of the time, then it's typically you don't have to do it, right? So it really is individual based.
What if it's a child?
The question is, what if it is a child? Most of the time, this is a capsule. It also comes in a powder. Anything in a capsule can be opened. Everything for a child is based on, so most supplements are based on a 150-pound individual. You'd have to do some math and calculate out the appropriate dose for a child based on body weight. The homeopathy does have child dosing on it, so that's the safest bet for stuff. We good? I turned my clicker off, so I didn't click through because I'm a clicker. So this moves us into talking about leaky gut, right? So you get some miming at this point. So this is a really good representation of our gut. The thing that separates our body from our environment is one cell layer thick. That's all that separates us from our food and our environment. It's very easily broken down, and we're going to discuss how it breaks down. But what happens, so my two hands are digestive tract cells. They're supposed to be held together with tight junctions. They're supposed to be communicating through these tight junctions. You're supposed to be absorbing your food through the little finger-like projections. Food goes into the cell, processed nutrients are then usable to your body. What happens in leaky gut is there's inflammation and damage, and these cells break apart. And now your body's working with two separate little islands, basically, right? Everything passes through and goes straight into your bloodstream without proper processing. So, lining of the intestinal walls have sustained damage or chronic inflammation. The tight junctions are broken and the cells can no longer communicate, so they can't even tell each other, hey, we need to come back together and repair. They don't even know that the other side exists after a point. Undigested food particles pass into your bloodstream, as well as toxins, waste products, pathogens like bacteria, viruses, fungus, and parasites. They all go straight into your system. In your bloodstream, your immune system is then activated, right? Because all this stuff is getting dumped into your bloodstream and your body goes, time out. What is all this? So your immune system goes into overdrive. You have to start identifying everything. And because it's not processed properly, food particles are too big, you start reacting to everything. Very problematic. Again, another picture, small intestine, but it is only one cell layer thick that is protecting you. That's it. So this stuff, very easily broken down. Symptoms of having a leaky gut are really similar to symptoms of Candida, right? Almost everybody with Candida has a leaky gut, but not everybody with a leaky gut has Candida. Okay? So Candida will cause leakiness because it's creating some inflammation right there in the digestive tract layer. This is where it lives. It's going to push those cells apart, but not everybody has a leaky gut because they've had Candida. Okay? It's just one of the many causes. So symptoms of leaky gut: digestive issues, gas, bloating, or improper digestion of food. That can look like multiple things to multiple people. If you are not chewing your food properly, you are not digesting properly, because digestion starts in your mouth. And if you're not digesting properly up here, the large food particles will pass into the digestive tract and start poking holes in it for you, right? This is the importance of chewing. Undigested food or improper digestion of food is also a lot of pain after eating, gas, bloating after eating, solid food in your stool, outside of corn, right? That we do not have the body ability to digest. Corn should pass out solid, but everything else, you shouldn't see food particles that you can identify in your bowel movements. That's a big no-no, okay? Allergies, again, new allergies or worsening allergies. The list of things is growing because your body is chronically exposed to everything coming into your system, right? And remember, this includes nose, because the digestive tract goes up into that tissue as well. So it might not be things you're eating, it might be things you're smelling you start reacting to, which is why environmental allergies can be getting worse as well, okay? Hormone imbalances, and this is a two-way street. You can have leaky gut that turns into hormone imbalances. You can have hormone imbalances driving you to have a leaky gut. Hormone imbalances are typically very inflammatory, right? Chronic widespread body pain, including muscle or joint pain. So, part of the problem is, if you have a leaky gut, you're not absorbing your nutrients properly. Your body thinks it is starving after some degree of that, and it will start breaking down bone for mineral and muscle for protein. Your body needs nutrients to function, and if it thinks you're not getting them in orally, it will start breaking down your tissue for you to continue living, right? Mood imbalances, there is a massive gut-brain connection. The gut barrier and the brain barrier are very, very, very similar. Your gut actually makes your neurotransmitters dopamine and serotonin. They travel from your gut up to your brain. If this is not functioning properly, it's not making all the right things, they're not able to go up there. Also, if the brain barrier starts to become inflamed, inflammation is getting in, nutrients are getting out, right? So brain fog and mood imbalance stuff, very common for people, right? Almost all the time, especially when people get stressed and then all of a sudden their stomach hurts, there's a huge gut-brain connection. Skin issues, again, rashes or acne. And this is my acne people who are 40, 50, 60 years old, right? We're well past the time where we should be having acne pop up. And I have seen some people with some serious cystic acne. Weight struggles. And this goes both ways as well. And it's completely individual based on the person's body and their metabolism and other things. Some people can't put weight on. Some people can't get weight off. For some people, if their body thinks it's starving, they're packing on weight because you don't know when nutrients are coming in next. And I would say that's more common. Some people go into starvation mode and their body is wasting away because it's breaking down too fast. I've seen both cases. And you don't know which you have until we're already in that phase. Brain fog, I talked about. Autoimmune issues. New autoimmune issues that have popped up or worsening autoimmune issues that have popped up. So, autoimmune issues are similar to allergies. Your body is being exposed to itself, looking at your body like it's a foreign invader in somewhere, and then attacking it, right? It's due to chronic overactivation of the immune system. Most people you know with an autoimmune issue were diagnosed later in life, typically women in their 40s, and it starts with one, and then a few years later you have another, and then you have another, because nobody has addressed why it got there in the first place, right? Your body is overreacting. And when your immune system is made up of about 80% of your gut bacteria, right? If there's disruption down here, it will transfer into other areas in the system. So this stuff can be very manageable if you get your gut health in check, right? Worsening of pre-existing conditions. This is my people who are getting really frustrated because they're doing the diet, they're doing the medications the doctor has given, they're doing all the supplements. Nothing is working for whatever XYZ condition they're addressing, and they're doing everything to the T, right? If you're not responding and you're progressively getting worse, you might not be absorbing your nutrients or the medication properly. This could have been the problem the whole time, and they didn't know, right? Look at how many symptoms we've discussed. It's a lot of things. Gut infections like Candida and parasites will cause leakiness if they're not taken care of, right? So kind of the take home of this evening, if you think you have Candida, you have to address Candida first before you try and heal the leakiness in your gut, okay? You have to figure out why the leakiness happened in the first place to start addressing it and get rid of it. So causes of leakiness, because this is a long list. A lot of people have heard of leaky gut. It's becoming more popular. A lot of people are doing a lot of good dietary practices, but they're not doing the things to actually take care of and repair and rebuild the digestive tract, right? So we're kind of going to discuss all that. But there's a lot of causes that people are not addressing. So diet, the standard American diet or the SAD diet, low fiber, low nutrient content, high in processed foods, very inflammatory, right? Huge problem. Lots of people are starting to address this already, which is a great thing, but it's not going to completely heal by just doing food alone. People who still consume their food allergens or things that they're sensitive to. So I happen to see a lot of people who come into my office or who come into the store and they say, I'm allergic to dairy, but I eat it all the time. You can't continue to eat something you're allergic to because you're creating chronic inflammation and you're breaking down your gut, right? But people do this all the time. Oh, I react poorly to bread, but I'm still going to eat it. You are still driving some leakiness and some inflammation and some serious stuff, right? And it might not be serious today, but you do it long enough down the road, you're going to have some other issues, right? So we've got to cut that stuff out because it's creating chronic inflammation in our system right in our gut. Gluten, regardless of if you are sensitive to it or not, and this is just the sad truth. Gluten for multiple reasons. It is a protein that is very long, found in grains, right? Most prominently wheat. Our body can digest a little chunk off and it's still very long. So if you're still consuming gluten, it's physically poking holes in the digestive tract lining because we can't break it down enough. The other problem is that most gluten comes from wheat. And if you're not doing organic wheat, wheat is sprayed for 3 days in this country with herbicide, pesticide to kill it so it's easier to harvest for the machines, right? They're saturating a grain with Roundup or glyphosate that is patented antibiotic. So it's driving inflammation and it's starting to kill off your good gut bacteria. So this is a huge problem for a lot of us. You go to other countries where they can't use glyphosate and all the other stuff, and this stuff isn't as much of a problem, right? We have a serious problem with that stuff. Stress. And who doesn't have stress, right? Chronic stress creates chronic inflammation. There is a known effect on gut health when you have stress and you're not addressing it, right? So I have lots of people that are doing all the diet stuff in the world. They're not addressing the stress aspect of their life. You have to do things to address these things, right? Because this is a driving force. Injury. So some people develop leaky gut because of a major trauma. Major car accident. I actually had a patient who was in a ski accident and had gut problems after and chronic pain after, right? And on paper, she looked very, very healthy. I looked at all her blood work. She looked very good. I said, cool, nobody's done a stool test on you. Face to face, you look like a very sick person. So I believe that something is wrong. We did a stool test. She had Candida, she had parasites, and she had H. pylori, off the chart, right? We started working on the diet. We started doing some balancing stuff. Heat pack, because she was wearing a heat pack 24/7. Gone, gut back down. She looked like she was pregnant all the time. She was going to be a grandma. She's like, this is not how I'm supposed to be living. All after a ski accident. Because that high impact stuff creates massive inflammation very fast, and it can lodge loose stuff that maybe your body was taking care of and keeping dormant, right?
So what does the heat pack do?
So she asked what the heat pack does. The lady was in chronic pain in her neck, so she was walking around with a heat pack that she could throw in a microwave pretty much 24/7, right? Because that's the only thing she could think of. And her traditional doctors were getting ready to put her on an antidepressant because they couldn't find anything wrong with her, so it's just in her head, right?
The easy way.
Right, the easy way, right? Like, but they weren't going the extra level. They don't have as much education in the nutrition and the other stuff, so they miss some of this stuff, right? Like, that's kind of what happens, unfortunately. And if you're not looking for it, you don't know what to look for, right? I look for this stuff on a regular basis. Intense exercise. So this is high intensity exercise for prolonged periods of time. This is my people who are in the gym for 3 to 4 hours at a time. This is my marathon runners. It's people who do Orange Theory and CrossFit 5 to 7 days a week and don't take a break, right? You need a break to repair. High intensity exercise is still stress in your body. Your body looks at it as a stress response and it starts driving the inflammatory response. So sometimes I have to cut people off to 30 to 45 minutes, and that's high intensity, right? Like, this is crazy stuff, not going for a walk or a swim or doing some nice yoga, right? There's plenty of things. Because typically the intense exercise people, and I have to cut them off, that's their method of stress relief, right? So then it's even more stressful for them, which I hate. I hate having to cut people off. If you're doing too much exercise and activity, you're breaking down your body faster than you can rebuild it, so you're going to drive the breakdown of tissue much faster as well, because your body still can't get in nutrients if you still have a leaky gut. Other causes: chronic infections like Candida, parasites, and H. pylori. My drug users, and this is street drugs, okay? Chronic NSAID users, or non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. This is over-the-counter Tylenol, aspirin, ibuprofen. For every aspirin and ibuprofen dose you take, you lose a tablespoon of blood every time. It is physically breaking down the digestive tract lining. Ibuprofen, aspirin, all that stuff, right? There's a reason it predisposes you to bruising. You're breaking down tissue. You take too much ibuprofen for long enough, you develop ulcers in the digestive tract, right? You are breaking down that barrier every time you take a dose of that, which is why it's supposed to be used only really truly when needed. And I know people were popping it like candy, right? If you're taking that stuff every single day, that is a red flag. And my best friend's husband, I opened their kitchen cupboard. They had a Costco-sized bottle of ibuprofen. And I said, time out. What is that? What's going on there? Well, I take it every day. Why would you take ibuprofen every single day? That's a red flag. Nobody thinks that that's weird. He had a headache every single day. I said, you need to go see your doctor. That's not normal. You shouldn't have a headache every day. You shouldn't have to take ibuprofen every single day. And you're trashing your gut by doing that, right? He had high blood pressure, which is why he was having headaches. He needed to go on medication. Boom. Yeah.
How about Zyrtec? Where does that fall?
So the question was, how about Zyrtec? You are in the PPI, or proton pump inhibitor, or acid blocking medications. The Zyrtec, oh no, that's an allergy medicine.
Yes.
No, my bad, that's not a PPI. PPIs are, this is like acid reflux drugs. Prevacid, the antacid, that kind of stuff. Typically given for people with heartburn, right? Those are supposed to be used for 2 weeks maximum, right? If you look up the drug recommendation, 2 weeks maximum. I have met people who have been on them for 20 years. They're giving them to infants now. Yes. So these create multiple problems. One, it stops your production of acid. You need acid to break down your foods. You need acid to break down and absorb mineral content in your body. So being on those for a prolonged period of time, you do not absorb iron or calcium. And as ladies, this is seriously problematic because it predisposes you, and it is a known drug effect, predisposes you to osteoporosis because you can't get your calcium in. So that's problem number one. You're stopping the absorption of your nutrients from the get-go. Problem number two, you need acid to kill off pathogens in your food, right? So I have some people who have been on this stuff for years, develop these things because they have no acid to kill things off, and then the leakiness happens, right? The reason people get put on acid blocking medications from the get-go, they don't test your stomach acid, and they can and they should. right? Most people don't have too little stomach acid. They're having an improper release of stomach acid. So as we all get older, we lose the ability to digest our food. Our enzyme and acid production naturally declines. So as we get older, this stuff is more common because we're going to have a harder time to digest our food. What happens typically, and not everybody, right? If you have ulcers, this stuff is not appropriate, but you break down most of your food, a little bit is left in your stomach, the other food leaves. Your body sees the small amount of food left in your stomach and goes, oh my gosh, we didn't do our job right. Let's kick out more acid, but let's do more this time because we didn't do it right the first time, right? That second round of acid is when people feel heartburn. But they don't check your acid, so they can't tell you that that's what's happening, right? They can do that. It's a pill you swallow and it checks your acid levels.
Can I ask you a question about the natural now to stop the heartburning? Is that also has a limit time to use?
Acid soothe.
So the question was, even the supplement stuff, the acid soothing type stuff, some of that, yes. For a long period of time, yes. And we're going to talk about ways to get you digesting better so you don't have to use that stuff all the time. That stuff is way better. It's not stopping your acid production. It's soothing after, right? So that stuff is not as bad, but the people who are taking the acid blocking medications and the proton pump inhibitors that stop acid production, serious problems down the road. Did you have a question?
You know, I did. I have a 6-year-old, and we went to see an ENT doctor, and she told me that I needed to give him immunity for the next year.
What for the next year?
Reninity twice a day for the next year because of his acid reflux, and I thought that was a bit extreme. So hearing you say that, and I just recently had blood work done, and it showed that his calcium level was low, and so things are starting to make sense. But once again, with his doctors, they're really forcing the reninity down his throat versus trying to really address the problem. So
Right.
you have me thinking about some things, but so I should really stop it because it is hurting his digestion.
Right.
Like he chokes at night.
Yeah, and I would say, kids, we're not all born with like great digestibility. Some people are born with less enzymes and ability to digest from the get-go anyways. We have chewable enzymes in the store because kids have digestive problems too, right? And if they are not checking his acid, I would seek out a second opinion to get somebody else who's going to be more working with you now that you're getting more information on some stuff, for sure.
But because the doctors are telling you when you have the acid reflux, if you don't take a pill, then you will develop cancer in the esophagus and your stomach. And it's true because the esophagus gets very, very sensitive.
Right.
And it dwells, it can.
Absolutely. So the question was, the doctors are telling you that you have to stay on the medication. It will. So in truth, it will, if you have chronic reflux, it can predispose you to developing cancer, right? You have to work with a practitioner if you're on that stuff for some other reasons. If they've never checked your acid levels, demand that they check your acid levels because they can. There's ways around it, but you would have to work with a practitioner. Yeah.
But how you do this test?
It's a pill you swallow, and it's on a string, and then you pull it back up, and it's literally going to measure the acid in your stomach. So the appropriate time for acid blocking medication, if you have ulcers or if you have a condition called Barrett's esophagus, which is the precancerous change so then you are stuck on the acid blocking medication. That's it. There's no option around it. Aside from doing stuff to enhance your digestion and support the digestive tract, there's no way you're getting off those things. But there's ways to digest your food better, which we will talk about.
To take supplements for digestion.
Yes, absolutely. You just got to do the best you can because there are people that have to take it. It's a very small percentage of people, right? So if they're not checking your acid level, they should check your acid level because it can be done because the majority of people don't fall into that category. They fall into the I'm bad digesting, it's over releasing at the wrong time.
So when they check the level, what are they finding?
They'll find that the acid levels are normal, which then is a signal to you that you have an improper release and that you shouldn't be on that medication for the long-term period of time. Yeah. Birth control pills, and as ladies mostly in the audience, lots of us have had exposure to this. This causes hormonal imbalance, right? You're giving yourself synthetic hormones, highly inflammatory. Your reproductive organs are right next to your digestive tract, ladies. Huge correlation. And again, just a graphic, inflammation, driving your cells apart, food intolerances typically do develop, immune system response becomes overactive, and then the potential for autoimmunity is going up and up and up. So there's 3 main ways that we can support the digestive tract. We can break down our food better. We're going to get into all these. We're going to support the digestive tract lining itself, and then balancing the good gut bacteria, which is supposed to help the long run for this gut stuff to stay intact. Okay? So supporting the breakdown of foods, these are things like digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes break down food into more absorbable forms. They're mostly combinations for fat, protein, and carbohydrates. We do have specific ones for food sensitivities like gluten, dairy, and starchy vegetables. So the caveat to these, if you have a gluten intolerance, this is not the green light to go eat gluten, right? And people think that. This is not the green light to go eat dairy, but people think that. What these are made for is the accidental exposure, or the exposure that you're going somewhere, somebody else is preparing your food and you have no control over it, which is minimal, and you can't avoid it. These will help break down those things to a smaller degree and help get it out of your system much faster. You still will have reactions, you're still going to have inflammation from getting in those things if you have issues with them, but it's going to make it less problematic for you, and the duration that you're suffering is less long, right? So I am gluten intolerant, and I know that, and I've been for a long time. I have gluten enzymes for when I go home, because nobody in my family understands what gluten is. And there's typically home cooking and somebody has slid something in somewhere, right? I trust nobody's cooking unless I'm doing it. Or if I go out to eat, because there's cross-contamination and I've ordered off of gluten-free menus, but there's, it's a shared kitchen and all that jazz, and I have reactions within a half hour, 45 minutes, right? So that's when I have these and I use these. If I know I'm going somewhere and I don't trust it, I do it before my meal. If it's after the fact and I start having symptoms, I do it then. Right? So it just depends on when I got exposed. But it very much speeds up what I go through, which is a really nice thing. Because you don't want that stuff in your system for as long as it really needs to be. Yeah?
So you do need to take an enzyme, though, on a regular basis, or no?
So the
Like,
question
as part of
was,
your
you need to take an enzyme on a regular basis. If you're having gut dysfunction, possibly. All the time for everybody? No. Enzymes are different than probiotics. Probiotics typically needed on a regular basis. Enzymes vary person to person. The older we get, this should be becoming more normal because we're actively losing the ability to break down our food, and this is enhancing our ability to break down food. HCl, or hydrochloric acid, right? This is your body's release, supports stomach acid production and helps you break down things like protein and fat. It is also the pathogen killing portion of the digestive tract. So we have HCl by itself. We also have enzyme blends where there's a smaller amount of HCl in it, right? So I know some people are very leery of doing HCl. If you are questioning your acid levels, go get them checked before you do HCl. If you have ulcers, you cannot do HCl, right?
Strong enough, the HCl supplement?
The question is it strong enough?
Yeah, because the acid.
Absolutely, it is strong enough. If you take HCl and you do not eat a meal, you will feel heartburn. This has to be done with a meal. Regular enzyme blends without HCl can be done in between meals. You do not have to do it with food. You do this without food, you will feel burning. It is strong enough. Okay?
So who should take the HCl?
The HCl, if you think you have low HCl, to help build it back up. If you have a hard time with fat or proteins, more people with a gallbladder taken out have a hard time with fat, should be looking into maybe HCl. There's also fat digestive enzymes. If you have no gallbladder and you were not told to do digestive enzymes, very common, but very problematic, because you have taken out one of your organs that is actively part of your digestive tract, right? And you're now making it hard to break down fat. If you can't break down fat, you cannot get fat-soluble nutrients like vitamins A, D, E, and K, right? So we need the ability to break down things to actually absorb nutrients. supporting the gut lining itself. So this is stuff like L-glutamine. L-glutamine is an amino acid. It is used for fast turning over cells for repair as fuel. So L-glutamine is part of a lot of post-workout recovery drinks. We have it by itself. It's odorless and flavorless, so it goes into water really nice. But it's used for muscle tissue because if you go work out, you break down your muscle, you want to repair it fast. The digestive tract lining turns over every 3 days, right? Your red blood cells in your body last about 120. So this is very fast turning over tissue. So if you're giving the fast turning over tissue to help, it typically helps with the healing process in general. Collagen and bone broth, and both of these have been very, very popular lately. Collagen is found in bone broth. Bone broth is just a delivery method of collagen. Both are very collagen rich. Collagen makes up the majority of your connective tissue in your body. About 70% of protein in your body is connective tissue, and it is collagen based. Connective tissue includes the digestive tract lining, all your blood vessels and arteries. 1/3 of your bone weight is collagen. It is what calcium sticks to, right? So this is a very prominent. Unfortunately, most collagen is marketed for hair, skin, and nail, and I think the beauty benefits are a side benefit because of how supportive it is for everything else. So there's a slight difference between bone broth and collagen by itself. Bone broth has mineral content from the bones. Collagen is just the collagen proteins, okay? That's the major difference. And you can make bone broth on your own at home. We have bone broth supplements. A lot of people don't have the time to make the bone broth at home all the time, so they do the supplementation stuff. It just depends on the individual. Yeah?
Is beef broth preferable to chicken broth?
The question is beef broth preferable to chicken broth? It does not matter, right? So you can do beef, chicken, turkey. Some people do fish. The size of the bone depends on how long you cook the bone to get the collagen out. But you can make bone broth out of any bones. You just want to make sure they're good, clean bones without toxins, because then you're going to absorb those things as well.
The longer you cook it, the better it is.
So the question is, the longer you cook it, the better it is. Yeah, so things like beef bones, the really thick stuff, you have to cook for like 72 hours at a minimum, right? 72 hours, right? So a lot of people do bone broth at home in a crock pot because it's a nice controlled, it's not open flame, right? I have a lot of people who are like, I'm not leaving an appliance on in my home. So they buy the bone broth. We have stuff pre-made in the freezer, ready to go. We have supplement powders that are bone broth that it's dehydrated and you put it in water. For all the collagen and bone broth powders that people use, I recommend people put it in hot water to melt it down. And then if they're gonna put a cold beverage in, put it in after, because then it's creamy. Otherwise it can be a little lumpy and clumpy. But if you melt the collagen down, it works very nice. And collagen is typically odorless and flavorless, so you can put it into coffee and teas and all sorts of beverages. You can put it into recipes to bump up the nutrient content. Easy to use. NAG and MSM. NAG stands for N-acetyl D-glucosamine. It is not a joint support, it's typically a gut support. MSM is a typical joint supportive nutrient. It is a sulfur-containing compound. These compounds help repair the tight junctions in the gut, right? So those two cells talking together again. These are found in some of the digestive tract formulas we have that are a combination of things like glutamine, NAG, MSM, some of the other herbs that we're going to talk about next, so that you don't have to take all these things as individuals. Right, I know. So some of the herbs to help support the gut lining: aloe, slippery elm, and DGL, which stands for D-glycerized licorice. All of these help support the mucosal layer of the digestive tract. You need the mucosal layer, and the mucosal layer sits on top of the little projections to slide things through your digestive tract, but also absorb your nutrients properly, right? So these things help with building that up. Aloe is also used for people with heartburn as a relief because it's calming and it's soothing, but it's also promoting tissue healing. Turmeric and boswellia can be good for the inflammation in the digestive tract. To keep turmeric in the digestive tract, you would want to do it with food, right? If you're doing it in between a meal, it's going to go through your system pretty fast. If you do it with your food, it's a little bit more likely to stay in the digestive tract. That being said, turmeric goes down all the inflammatory pathways, So it will get dispersed in your system very fast. And if you have a lot of inflammation, it's going through all the inflammation. Boswellia, on the other hand, this is an internal preparation of frankincense. Really good for inflammation. Goes down one inflammatory pathway, and that inflammatory pathway is found most commonly in our digestive tract, in our sinuses and lungs, and in our joints. So it's a little bit more specific for gut inflammation than turmeric is going to be. The two work well together, so there's no harm in taking both if somebody's already taking turmeric. But the boswellia is a little bit more digestive tract specific. Restore is this lovely mineral beverage over here on the side. This helps protect your tight junctions against Roundup, which is the pesticide that we are chronically exposed to. So this is a liquid mineral supplement. It works within 15 minutes of taking it, and it works the first time you take it. It's a mineral, so your body will burn through it in about 6 to 7 hours. So they recommend you do it half hour before you have a meal, about 3 times a day. This puts up a temporary barrier in your gut and protects you from other foods, right? And they have good clinical research on it, and I would look it up. It's helping your gut bacteria communicate more effectively together. So it's helping your probiotics do their job better. So if everybody's on little individual islands because you have a lot of gut inflammation and all the tight junctions are broken, all the probiotics living on the top of those cells can't talk to the other probiotics, so they can't help with the gut repair either. So when you do the restore and it helps temporarily restore the gut lining, your body can go, oh my gosh, look at all these holes. We got to start doing our job better. It's a much better communication system for your good gut bacteria. Absolutely kid friendly. We have it in the kids section. It's body weight dosed. In the kids section, it's called My Magic Dirt Water. It's really cute. It's got a cute little dinosaur on it, right? It's all the same stuff. It tastes like garden hose water, right? It's a clear mineral. It doesn't really have too much of a bad taste. Pretty easy to take. And a serving is a teaspoon for an adult, which is a really small amount. It comes as a nasal spray as well. And I thought, why did they make a nasal spray? Aside from your gut lining is up in your nose, right? But for the people who are driving through farm country and breathing in the pesticide, we're creating a barrier right then and there. So very smart, easy for travel to do the nasal spray. Yeah.
I've noticed with Restore, after a while, the color of the liquid changes. Does that mean that like the balance is no longer there, or it'll start to get like a little yellow?
So the question was, over time, the color of the Restore changes to a little bit yellow. I think it's just from oxygen exposure. It shouldn't get broken down until it's in your body. Yeah, it should still be effective. Yeah. Because it's just a mineral in a water suspension, so nothing crazy where it should be breaking down.
Now, is there a reason why some doctors recommend to take it in a lower dose and then build it up?
Sure. So the question was, is there a reason why some doctors recommend a low dose and then build up? It's a mineral. So if you're taking too much mineral on an empty stomach, you can feel a little bit nauseous. So a lot of people do much better. And that goes for a lot of liquid minerals we have, because we actually have quite a few liquid minerals that say the exact same thing. Start with a small dose, start building and work to the full dose. Some people can go full dose and they're totally fine. Some people need to, and again, kind of that like, how healthy are you? If you're not at 70% health or higher, you probably want to start at a lower dose and work up into it, because it can be a little heavy on the stomach for some people. Everybody's different. Very good question. Balancing the gut bacteria. This is where the other probiotics come in. They are the good bacteria in the small and large intestine. They do a lot of things for us. So they make up about 70% of our immune system. They produce our dopamine and our serotonin, which are our neurotransmitters that go up into the brain. They also turn our food into usable vitamins like B vitamins and vitamin K, right? So if your gut bacteria balance is off, you're not getting those functions as well. But these guys are supposed to be helping keep the barrier tight down there. Prebiotics. If you are eating a boatload of vegetables, you typically do not need extra prebiotics. Prebiotics are the food for the good bacteria, right? And if you are eating good starchy veg, you do not need extra prebiotics. Otherwise, fiber is a prebiotic, right? I encourage people to do flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed as an addition in their food, because it's extra fiber, which is extra prebiotic. Good grass-fed organic butter is a prebiotic. So typically very good for gut health unless you have a dairy allergy, right? Then it's no good because it's going to drive inflammation. But all those things are going to feed your good gut bacteria. So a quick recap. Gut health is related to many, if not all, health issues in one way or another, right? So getting this under control typically helps with a lot of other issues in your system. The basis for gut health and repair is to remove exposures and causes of imbalance in your system, replace enzymes and good bacteria that's missing out, reducing inflammatory foods and lifestyle, and then supporting the body with providing building blocks for actual repair. Are there other questions? Yeah.
I appreciate you telling us about the Candida test.
Mm-hmm.
How about leaky gut? Besides doing blood work, when can you say, hooray, I don't have leaky gut anymore?
So a lot of the time it's going to be, okay, so the question was, there's testing for Candida. There is testing for leaky gut, but how do you know when you're done with leaky gut symptoms? If all your symptoms are going away, a lot of it's going to be symptom driven and symptom based. So if you're checking things off to your list of your symptoms, you can slowly start checking things off your supplement list too. And if they don't come back, then things are probably good. You have to maintain a good, healthy diet, right? And so a lot of people go through, they do a good, healthy diet to rebalance, and then they go back to McDonald's and crazy stuff, right? They're going to have this problem again eventually, right? Because they're doing the standard American diet, they're going to drive inflammation. So the way to maintain is to maintain good dietary practices, make sure stress levels are in check. There's a lot of things, because it can be a fluctuating problem. It can be problematic and go away for a while and become problematic again. So you have to keep an eye on it sometimes. But the best way to know for sure for you is to base it off your symptoms, aside from going in and getting a test.
Is there a test though?
Isn't there a stool test for microbiome?
So the question is there a test for the microbiome? So the stool testing for the microbiome is still questionable. It's still not really great. There are other stool tests specifically for leaky gut. Yes, there are. Yeah.
I did a urine test for leaky gut from my holistic doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and was diagnosed with it.
Gotcha.
It is available.
Yeah. Yeah. So she said she did a urine test for leaky gut. Were you supposed to eat some kind of substance? You did a urine test? Yeah.
Right.
So they're looking at the metabolism of what's happening and how you're absorbing some stuff. For sure.
Through a doctor?
Through a doctor. Yeah.
Not an MD though.
Holistic.
Yeah. Functional medicine, holistic, naturopathic. All those people are going to do more stuff like that. There are some good traditional MDs who do more functional things, because I have met a few who know what I'm doing and agree with me on some stuff, which is always really nice. So some of the younger docs coming out into practice actually understand some of this stuff. And it's nice to see some GP MDs coming out into practice who have these issues. They know they have these issues and come to see me because they know they don't know how to address them. Right? Because they're like, we didn't do as much nutrition. This is stuff that we, there's not a medication for it, so we don't know how to fix it, but I know it's a problem. And you do really well with this stuff. So younger MDs coming out know about this stuff. It's not crazy talk to them. Older MDs, this was not part of the education, so they very much have missed out on helping with this stuff. And I think as our food supply has gotten worse, this is becoming more and more common and more of an issue, right? So I don't think it was as big of a problem back in the day. Right? My grandma looks at me and she's like, what do you even eat? And I'm like, you ate real food back then. You didn't have all this processed stuff, right? Like your diet growing up and my diet growing up were very different. You did not have Pop-Tarts. My mom gave me sugary garbage. And she didn't realize it was total sugary garbage. I mean, to some degree, sure. But I also put a cup and a half of sugar on my Rice Krispie treats, right? The amount of stuff that went into my system, not the same for my parents. So, yeah.
Do you see patients or stuff?
The question is, do I see patients? I do see patients. My office is in St. Charles. I know. It's a little bit of a hike. My name and practice information are on the bottom of your yellow sheet that was on your chair today. I'm easily found via Google.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So you gave obviously a lot of information here, but if you're
Yes.
trying to work on leaky gut, how do you know which ones?
So you have to figure out some of the causes, right? You have to play around a little bit, but a lot of like the baseline, the collagen type stuff, the gut lining support type stuff. If you're having a hard time digesting, you need some enzyme support too. Probiotics, you can do a lot of those things in conjunction, right? Yeah.
Do you have to, so I've had, I think both,
Mm-hmm.
and did better after diet and taking supplements. I went to a naturopath.
Yeah.
However, it has come back. And my question is it important to go get an allergy test to determine maybe what foods we've now developed allergies to? Since I never had them before, but now.
Right. So the question was, we've had leaky gut before, we think we have it again. Should we go do allergy testing with Candida? So as a person who does food allergy and food sensitivity testing, I will tell you, if I think you have a leaky gut, I do not run food sensitivity testing because all it's going to tell me is that you have a leaky gut and you're overreactive to everything. I go through a gut healing protocol first, trying to heal up the digestive tract to then see what you're really truly more reactive to make it more valid, right? Because if you go in the height of a leaky gut, you're going to show 20,000 things because your body is simply overreacting to everything at that time. So it's a waste of money, in my opinion.
So is it best first to do a leaky gut test to see where you're at?
Even then, so if you did a leaky gut test, you would start working on leaky gut first before you would do food sensitivity testing.
Okay.
Yeah, very, very common problem. All right. Thank you so much for coming out this evening, everybody. Thank you.